Shalom, friends. Today, we are diving into a topic that has challenged and inspired believers for millennia: the relationship between faith and works. At the heart of this discussion are two pivotal figures in the New Testament, James and Paul. These two men, although sometimes misunderstood as opposing voices, reveal a profound harmony in their teachings when viewed through the lens of the two greatest commandments: love God and love your neighbor. I want to begin by sharing a personal story, as my journey to understanding this topic has shaped not only my faith, but also my mission. When I first started coming to faith and researching whether Rabbi Yeshua truly was the Messiah, I came across a YouTube video about James, his half-brother. It piqued my interest, and I began to study James more deeply. I found myself connecting with him on a personal level. James was a man who fought to uphold Jewish laws and customs, while Paul's mission was directed toward the Gentiles. James' mission was rooted in maintaining the Jewish identity of the faith. This resonated with me because, like James, I have a deep commitment to the Jewish roots of our faith. James was also reluctant to believe in Yeshua, despite growing up alongside him and witnessing his miracles. It was not until Yeshua's resurrection that James fully accepted him as the Messiah. This reluctance, this initial stubbornness, felt familiar. As I learned more, I began to see a rivalry between James and Paul. In my mind, James represented authenticity, while Paul seemed to diverge. As I humorously thought to myself back then, forget Paul, James is awesome. However, as my understanding deepened, I realized this rivalry was misplaced. The heart of the perceived conflict lies in their teachings about faith and works. James famously declared, "Faith without works is dead." James chapter 2, verse 26. Meanwhile, Paul emphasized justification by faith, writing, "For by grace you have been saved through faith, and not of yourselves. It is the gift of God." Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8. On the surface, these statements seem contradictory. Was salvation through faith alone, or did it require works as well? For a time, I wrestled with this question. The reason I was unable to reconcile James and Paul was because I had the equation wrong. That is to say, I thought faith plus works equaled salvation, when in reality, the equation was faith equals works equals salvation. James and Paul were not opponents, but complementary voices in the same symphony. Let us first examine James's perspective. As a leader in the early Jerusalem church, James was deeply committed to preserving the Jewish identity of the faith. He emphasized that faith, if genuine, would naturally manifest itself in action. In James chapter 2, verse 18, he writes, "But someone will say, 'You have faith, and I have works. Show me your faith without works, and I will show you my faith by my works.'" This teaching aligns closely with the Tanakh. For instance, Abraham's willingness to sacrifice Isaac was a demonstration of his faith through action. Genesis chapter 22. James explicitly references this event, saying, "Was not Abraham our father justified by works when he offered Isaac his son on the altar?" James chapter 2, verse 21. The Jewish understanding of mitzvot, or commandments, is deeply rooted in this concept. Faith in God is not passive. It is active and alive, expressed through obedience and good deeds. The Talmud echoes this sentiment, stating, "Great is study, for it leads to action." Babylonian Talmud, Kedushin, chapter 140. Paul, on the other hand, was called to bring the message of Yeshua to the Gentiles. His focus was on introducing faith in God as the starting point of salvation. In Romans chapter 3, verse 28, Paul writes, "We maintain, therefore, that a man is justified by faith apart from the works of the law." However, Paul did not dismiss works. Instead, he clarified their role. In Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 through 10, Paul states, "For by grace you have been saved through faith, and not of yourselves. It is the gift of God, not of works, that no one would boast. For we are his workmanship, created in Messiah Yeshua for good works, which God prepared before that we should walk in them." Here, Paul acknowledges that good works are the natural result of salvation through faith. This perspective reflects the Tanakh's teaching that faith and action are inseparable. Micah declares, "He has shown you, man, what is good. What does the Lord require of you but to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God?" Micah chapter 6, verse 8. The teachings of James and Paul converge when we understand that faith and works are not in competition, but in harmony. James addresses the evidence of faith, while Paul addresses its foundation. Together, they reveal the complete picture. Faith leads to works, and works confirm faith. Rabbi Yeshua himself provides the ultimate model for this harmony. In John chapter 14, verse 15, he says, "If you love me, keep my commandments." Here, love for God, faith, is inseparable from obedience, works. The Midrash further illustrates this principle, stating, "Faith without deeds is like a bird without wings." Midrash Tehillim, Psalm 11. Both James and Paul root their teachings in the two greatest commandments. To love God with all your heart, soul, and mind requires faith, a trust in His sovereignty and His plan. To love your neighbor as yourself requires action, serving others, practicing kindness, and living out the values of the Torah. James emphasizes this interplay when he writes, "Pure religion and undefiled before our God and Father is this, to visit the fatherless and widows in their affliction, and to keep oneself unstained by the world." James chapter 1, verse 27. Similarly, Paul writes, "The entire law is fulfilled in one word, in this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself." Galatians chapter 5, verse 14. As I deepened my faith, I began to see my own mission reflected in Paul's work. Just as he was called to be a light to the Gentiles, I feel called to help Gentile Christians better understand the Jewish roots of their faith. This includes embracing the two greatest commandments, upholding the Torah's moral teachings, and recognizing the profound unity between James and Paul. In the end, James and Paul are not rivals, but partners in proclaiming the fullness of the gospel. Faith and works are not opposing forces. They are inseparable aspects of a life lived in obedience to God. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more biblical insights. God bless.